Hello YouTube, it's TSP here, back with another video. So today the video that I'm bringing to you is a little different than the one I had anticipated. So I'd initially planned on doing or beginning a series on sleep and helping you to fix your sleep, things that are common problems. But today has been an interesting day. It's been an interesting time, and I think that this would be a good addition to the series on dealing with pain. I didn't plan this one as much because it was kind of a spur of the moment thing with some of the information that I learned today. So I recently saw my primary care physician, and they informed me that there's a good chance that I have a tear in my labrum of my hip. And so that was pretty concerning for me because that would mean that I would probably have to change some aspects of my lifestyle, particularly when it comes to working out, things that I typically like to engage in activities-wise. And so I think this is kind of groundbreaking, earth-shattering for me, just thinking about the potential for that. So not only did my PCM tell me that, but I consulted with one of my friends who's in the final stages of his orthopedic surgery residency, and he thinks that I might have hip impingement, which is even a greater concern for me, which would mean even more significant change to my lifestyle. And one of the things that I was thinking about is that he told me that I would have to stop things like I couldn't squat anymore. And I think probably most people think, why is that such a big deal? Why do you care if you can't squat anymore? But for me, that was kind of a shattering of at least part of my perspective, the way I look at myself, the way I see myself. So I've seen myself as an athlete for such a long time, and that would probably take away part of what I feel makes me me. You know, squat has been one of my favorite lifts to do, one of the lifts that I'm the best at. I've just always been good at it, and to have something like that taken away takes away part of, even albeit maybe a small part of my identity, who I see myself to be. And so when I'm thinking about this idea of dealing with pain, how we deal with pain, how to deal with pain better, a lot of times we're thinking about pain in the context of the acute onset or experience of pain. So right now we are in that physical pain or emotional pain. And what it made me think about is before that pain. Before the pain is actually being experienced, a lot of times there's issues when it comes to anticipation of that pain. So sometimes we might call it anticipatory anxiety, that distress that comes before the actual event that's occurring. And I definitely am experiencing some of that at this point, that there's anticipation of the loss of part of who I am, potentially the loss of some of the things that I enjoy doing immensely, anticipation of the potential physical pain associated with surgery, whether it be for labral tear or hip impingement. But that's a lot of it's the unknown, right? I've never had this surgery before for my hip. I've never had hip problems, and hip problems, to my knowledge, tend to be somewhat degenerative. So once you already have one surgery, it appears that you probably, there's a good chance that you'll need more down the line, and I'm relatively young. May not look it, but all of those things are part of this anticipatory distress that is part of dealing with pain. So being aware of the fact that it's not just that pain that we may, or maybe it's something that's inevitable that we can avoid, but prior to the pain, there's pain prior to the pain of being ready for the pain of knowing that there may be pain coming. And this is something that's really interesting to me, because even though I don't know for sure that this is the case. It's quite possible that it's not a tear. It's quite possible that it's not hip impingement. Yet there's still that distress that we might experience prior to the potential onset of that physical or emotional pain. And so, one of the things that I think about is how do we deal with this? So, being potentially anxious, being anxious about something that may or may not occur, and taking a perspective on this. So, do we go into the future and say, well, in the future, I may not be able to squat, but at least I will have the general use of my legs. At least I'll be able to walk. That's a perspective that could be helpful to take. Or do we try to take another approach where we're warding off the current anxiety by looking at the fact that, hey, I don't even know whether or not this is going to be something that comes to fruition, whether I'm going to require a surgery or not. And so there's no point really in me focusing on or thinking about that at this point. And that's tough because on the one hand, I don't really want to put myself in a position where I'm not ready for the potential consequences. But at the same time, I don't want to be focusing too much on something that may or may not come into existence. So this is something that we have to make a determination for ourselves. How do we go about our lives? Do we try to deal with something that may or may not occur? Or do we try to find a way of not having to, or feeling as if we need to focus on that event? And that's pretty tough. And so that's something that I'm thinking about. And at this point, truthfully, I'm struggling with that right now myself as I think about the potential for this. And I'm already experiencing some of this because my PCM told me, my physician told me that I need to decrease the intensity of my workouts. So I need to cut out running. I need to cut out squats. So any type of workout where I'm putting a load on my hip where it's at the end of its rotation. So squats, deadlifts, which were two of my favorite lifts to this point. And that changes a lot of what I have to do in terms of my workouts anyway. So I am completely revamping the workouts since those were two of the core things I did in terms of my workouts. So this is something that, I think I can bring you guys along for this ride. If they determine that I would require surgery, I think that this might be a good thing to share as I kind of go through this process, as I learn more about what's going to happen, how this is going to impact me, how it's going to impact my functioning, how I cope with it, how I deal with it. And I think that I'm going to definitely continue, and I'm going to create that series starting to kind of focus on sleep. But at this point, I just wanted to share this. And, if you are currently going through anything similar to this, comment down below, and I'd love to hear your story. But thank you all for listening. If you're interested in hearing more about this kind of process and what happens to me, I have an MRI coming up, and I have to wait for almost a month before I get that MRI. So I'm not super excited about that because that's prolonging the anticipation. Then I have an appointment with my orthopedic surgeon after that to see what they're recommending. But if you like to hear more about that, comment, like, subscribe. But thank you all for listening. This TSP out. Until next time, hopefully you can make your tomorrow better than today.